Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Avery, but I go by Soavecito, and I'm a horror content creator. Welcome to episode 14 of Whispers of Horrors. It is super early for me. It's 3 a.m., and I'm so happy to have our guest, Phil, join us on Whispers. How you doing today? Good morning.
Hey, thank you very much for having me and for being up this early in the morning to accommodate it.
No, honestly, I get so excited waking up early just to know that I'm making content and playing, also talking about horror, just horror in general. But I just wanted to take a second, just like Phil, if you want to just talk a little bit about yourself and introduce you to everybody in Whispers, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Phil, as I've already been said, and I've been a content creator for a couple of years now. On my kind of own side of it, I started off like as a lot of us do, like streaming on Twitch and stuff, and I kind of fell into like I make videos on YouTube, and also stream a lot, and a lot of it centered around horror and also The Last of Us in particular, just because particularly one of the things I do on streams now is try and like beat what's called permadeath, which is trying to beat the whole game on the hardest difficulty without any deaths, which is an extremely tough challenge. Might drive you a little bit crackers if you if you do it too long.
Yeah.
But doing that and making videos like talking about like the lore and stuff of the game, but also reviewing other horror games, particularly survival horror, anything that's kind of rooted in that kind of old Resident Evil style of game.
Okay.
That's kind of like the main thing that I grew up with as a kid, and that's always the thing that's stuck with me as far as horror gaming goes. And then on the other side of it, I'm also the co-creator of the Horror Game Awards, which repping with the t-shirt,
Hey, shout out to Horror Game Awards.
which we set up 2022, late 2022 now, because essentially me and Will, who set it up, big fans of the horror genre as a whole, and particularly at that point in time, it's not a huge improvement, but it does seem to have like moved a little bit with more mainstream horror game. But things like the Game Awards, like the mainstream Game Awards, weren't really recognizing like some of the like fantastic horror titles that were coming out, and so we thought, well, we might as well do it ourselves and try and like bring more attention to, because it's always been kind of a genre that a lot of people will either overlook, or it's just for people with weird interests, like all that spooky or gory stuff or whatever. So we were just like trying to shine more of a light on it,
That's cool.
particularly at the moment where it feels like, again, particularly survival horror, which is always like been my favorite genre, is having something of a renaissance, especially in like the indie scene and stuff. So we absolutely want to celebrate that and get more people who are interested in that be able to show, look, there's all this great stuff being made. It's coming out now. You don't have to just rely on games that are like 20, 30 years old.
Hmm. No, I think that's really cool. Like I said, I think I told you off air. When I was coming up with Whispers, like I was a big fan of the Horror Game Awards. The fact that you guys are giving a platform and just like a way for people who make horror games in general is amazing. You know, like I said, you're getting them a chance to be seen by so many other peoples to promote their game, but also just to show the art that people are working on. Um, but again, like I said, that gave me just inspiration to come up with something that was Whispers of Horror, just to be able to be another platform or just a voice or to get to connect with people in the space of just horror in general, to be able to get them to know them in a personal level. So I think that's awesome. Also, like the fact that you're doing a permadeath of The Last of Us. You are an insane man about that. I think that's kind of crazy. But let me ask you, how did you get into horror? Like, what about horror is kind of gravitated you to be like a horror content creator?
I've always kind of been like, even again, but going back to being a kid and not just in video games, I think I've always been into horror in general. Not necessarily always as much as I am now. I've got this distinct memory of, I think I was about 10 years old or something. I can't remember exactly, but um, my uncle was babysitting me and he was watching a Tom Hanks film called The Burbs, which
Okay.
is absolutely not a horror film at all. It's like a comedy about like mass murderers living next door, but there was like this scene where the dog finds a human bone like digging in the garden type thing, and yeah, just kind of the difference between then and now is like the little kind of 10-year-old me was like haunted by this and like couldn't really sleep properly and coming downstairs, and now obviously
Now you eat,
29
live, and
years
sleep
later.
of it. I get that.
But yeah, there was always like things like whether it's stuff like Goosebumps, whether it's like other books. Like I was a big reader as a kid. Stuff like there was a series called The Last Vampire, series of novels. Like a lot of Stephen King as I started to grow up. Like all these things just kind of like I don't know fed me more and more into like horror and spooky and uncanny and like dark fantasy as well. A lot of that sort of side of things, and I don't know, just kind of snowballed from there.
Okay, I have some like a similar experience. I guess like I was like around the same age, like maybe 9 or 10, and I was at my grandma's house, and the first horror movie I've ever seen was Saw, and I watched the whole thing, and it got me to like it had me stay up the whole night, and my father was hanging out with his like family, everything late, and I think I maybe like 4 a.m. in the morning. He came into the my grandma's apartment, and it scared the living shit out of me. Like, and from that point on, because I didn't know who was coming in, I was like, "Yo, the guy from Saw is coming to get me. Like, he's gonna put the shackle on my leg, and then I'm gonna be locked into this room and going through these torturous contraptions." But from that point on, I just like something about like the adrenaline and just like the hair on the back of my neck standing up. It's just a different feeling. It's like the best drug you could ever ask for without doing any. You know. So I definitely respect and understand where you're coming from when it comes to like that stuff. I wanted to ask you, like, I know you said you were speed running The Last of Us. Like, what made you want to do that particular game, and also to do like a permadeath? Because the game is long, and so it's not a short game. So I just wanted to see like, and so when did you start it, and what made you choose The Last of Us and to do that type of challenge?
Um, that's funny. This is another one where like first time I played it on stream, like on its hardest difficulty, which is called Grounded. Like I think I played it. I played the first one through and played the second one through, both on Grounded, and kind of died a whole bunch of times, like hundreds of times, like no exaggeration. And then
Was Grounded
um,
added to it? Like, wasn't there, or was Grounded always a difficulty? I thought they had like um, uh, like they added to that, or I could be wrong. I was just curious. Like, was
yeah,
Grounded?
so I think there was a like there's a difficulty just below called Survivor, which I think
Yeah.
was like the base game's like hardest difficulty, like when they brought the first one out, and then they added it, and then on the second one they added Grounded and Permadeath like as a
Okay.
DLC pretty soon after. I think
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, like first time I'd done it, like that was when I kind of just by virtue of playing that game, you kind of become familiar with other creators who are playing similar games, and there was a lot of people doing Grounded Permadeath, and like so I got an interest in kind of watching them. But I also like after finishing it for the first time, I was also like, nope, there is no way I am ever taking on this challenge or doing this. This seems completely insane. Like I'm not going to be doing like put myself through that, and then I don't know, it kind of somewhere along the line it gets a tux in you, and you like if you're kind of thinking, well, I'll go back and I might play it again. I enjoyed doing that, and then you see other people and you think, well, maybe this is doable. Maybe I can give it a go, dip my toe in and stuff like that, because it's got like there's various stages of permadeath. So there's like whole game permadeath where if you die it resets the entire game, but there's also per chapter, so it resets you to the beginning of the chapter, which is not quite as big a leap back. So you sort of go, well, maybe I can try that and see how well I do, and like, oh, but I died a lot less than last time, and then it just kind of, especially because there's like a community of people around it, and there's a lot of people doing it, and people going, oh, you should, they're all enablers as well. This is the thing that they'll all sort of go, well, you don't have to be like this, mad pro gamer or anything to do it. You can, anyone can do this as long as you kind of learn the game and do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, and then you're in. Then they've got the hooks.
No, especially if you like the game, I think it could definitely get you gravitated towards just like continuing it. So how long have you been speedrunning it or running it, the permadeath?
I started probably last year, so I started doing part one last year and like trying to do that, and then I ended up taking a bit of a break from it. I was like real like close. I got down to like on the per chapter mode. I'd done it with only dying once.
Okay.
And then but then I couldn't get that like final step of the completion. I was just like, oh, this is driving me crackers. I'm gonna take a break from that and then play some other stuff. And also like the part 2 remaster was coming out with the new game mode, so I started playing a few different things. And then because I was playing part 2 more, I started doing the permadeath on part 2. And I was like, yeah, I want to go back to part 1 and finish it at some point. So was it 2 weeks ago, maybe? I kind of went, well, you know what? I'll take a bit of a break from part 2 because I was in a similar position with part 2, like where I got that close but not quite getting to it. So I took, and I was like, did what ended up being a really long stream. I was like, well, we'll play it on pitch after permadeath, but I'll watch the director's commentary because I've never done that. Watch that with the stream, quite interesting. And then of course doing that, don't die the entire run. I'm on like for 10 hours like live, and just ended up getting like the completion that I felt like I'd never get like last year. Then it just happened, and it was just like, oh, okay, that
I respect it.
there we go.
Would you I got a question, like would you ever do both of them part Last of Us 1 and 2 like in a whole one day, the kind of thing, like you do a whole permadeath where you do the first game all the way through and then play the second one all the way through? Would you do ever something like that?
It, I mean, it's something I want to try at least, but it wouldn't be in a single sitting. It'd be like
Yeah.
it'd have to be over multiple, because like you could do the first one in a single sit. Like if you don't watch cutscenes and you're just playing through and you know exactly where you're going, it's about 6 hours long or something like that. It's about, yeah, which is about how much I tend to stream for it a day. Part 2 is about 12. So
Okay.
yeah. I mean, although I've done 24-hour stream before, the idea of like sitting and doing that for 18 hours straight is exhausting me already.
Yeah, I've done my first 24 hour horror 24-hour stream, and I started seeing things like at a certain point. I think the 18-hour mark, I just like my eyes started just blending in with like the game, and then the 22-hour mark, my friend had to keep making sure that I was awake by like just talking to, like just having been on Discord and just talking to me. It's not easy. So the fact that people do longer than that, it's insane. So I can only imagine just trying to play a game that you can't die and be focused at that later span of time of like 18 to 24 hours. Just like you're basically asking for you to start the game over again. But
Yeah, you just don't realize your eyes have sunk down and then wake up and there's a death screen in front of you.
oh,
Oh, well, that was inevitable.
I did see on Twitter or X Twitter, whatever I call it, Twitter. It is what it is. Where you're playing Ellie, and then I guess you made a jump, and then for some reason the game just didn't register that you were supposed to get to the other side. I think you were on like a fire escape, and then you fell, and I just saw the sadness in your eyes of just like, why did I die at this point? Which is which was very funny. But I can't, like I said, I can't, like, I kudos to you for doing like a permadeath. I don't know if I could ever do it just for the small little things like that, like just being able to die not from enemies but from just like just landscape. Like, how do you like? How does that like affect you playing the game? Like knowing that something like that could make you start from the beginning.
It's, yeah. There's a lot of them as well. Like there's a lot of places where you can do full deaths because if you miss time a jump or whatever, if you're not like fully paying attention. Like I think my thumbstick had slid ever so slightly to the left as I've done that, and it just, yeah. So I'm very careful about that one now. But there's also a lot of places because it's a big game, and there's a lot of areas where like if you go into the next area too fast before it's loaded in, you can fall through the world, and that counts as a death as well. And
What? Oh, that's insane.
there's so much stuff like that. And there's one that kind of stuck in my mind of like someone else doing it where they were just like on a ledge above and they jumped down to like do like a jump and attack on an enemy, and as they kind of like jumped down and like raised the knife, and then everything disappeared except for the playable character, and then just fell, and you just see his face as he goes this, and despair floods.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to just making content, when did you start streaming, and what made you decide to become a streamer, or just a content creator in general?
Um, it started. We were a little bit away into the pandemic at that point, so I think it was like 2021. Um, but basically, I'd end up like in my last job working from home, like when it all started,
Mm-hmm.
and then it basically for a couple of years afterwards, because the way it was all set up, um, and I just got the PlayStation 5. I think the first time I did it was like just like curiosity, because there was this little mode you just press and you could stream directly from the PlayStation. I was just like, um, why not just try it like again, and just curiosity and boredom kind of did it, and
Mm-hmm.
then um, I can't remember exactly when I made the full leap into it, like and decided, oh yeah, I'll do this as a proper thing, but um, I think because I'd got a lot back into gaming, like there've been like a whole long period where I hadn't really been playing games, 'cause just life had got in the way,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden I was at home again, and so cracked out the old Sega Mega Drive, the Genesis, it's like and then PlayStation 3, and then kind of was like, well, I'll get a PlayStation 4 because there's games on there I'm interested to try, and then a little bit later the PlayStation 5 comes out, and then all of a sudden you're back into it again, and you've got like so.
Did,
Um,
did you have any difficulty getting a PS5 when it came out?
uh, I couldn't get one. I was like, I tried to pre-order it, and like every time I did, I'd get to the checkout and it'd be already gone.
Oh,
Um, and then I went for a walk, and then my wife called me and was like, "You wanting to pre-order a PS5?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was like, "Well, good news, I've got one for you." Like, I don't know
oh,
what it is. She's a
clutch.
wizard. So,
Hey, you got a good wife. That's it. That's clutch. Getting that phone call, that would have made me so happy. I'm not gonna lie. For me, I had to like I went to the whole Target whatever things to try to get out checkout, and just couldn't get one. But then I signed up for like I went to the like PlayStation store to be on a wait list, which I didn't think it was gonna actually happen. And I think a year later, I got an email saying, "Hey, you've been selected to get your PS5." I was at work. I said, "I'm going on break right now." Put my credit card information. Didn't care, even though my credit card was a little high. I said I didn't care. Like the fact that I could get a PS5 at this moment, I had to stop what I did, and it only gave me 10 minutes to finish the registration for it. So I did that, make sure I got it and everything like that, and it's just like just the whole PS5 craze during the pandemic was just like its own era. Like I don't think
mm,
we'll ever have an era like that, like where people couldn't acquire a certain item, and obviously like with the pandemic, like they just didn't have. There was a shortage of like them being able to build so many of them, and it was just a crazy time to be alive, even though like just even in a gaming space. But I wanted to ask you, like, I know you mentioned like trying to balance life and just content creating. Like, how are you doing that now? Like, how is it to just be able to balance your regular life and making content?
it's ironically it's a lot easier now than it was previously, because like um, again, one of the other side effects of the pandemic and a bunch of other things, like so my wife lost her mobility. She's disabled, and like she we needed all sorts of stuff like stair lift to get her up and down the house, and like
Yeah.
mobility scooter to get around. So um effectively, one of my main things I do now is I'm full-time carer for her,
Okay.
which it is what it is, but we still manage to have a full life and everything, and like
Yeah.
all that, and find ways to enjoy stuff. But what that means in practice is that I'm home a lot more than I would be otherwise. So it kind of oddly works out, because it's like when I'm not streaming, if I'm like doing stuff like video editing or whatever, obviously I can get up and do whatever I need to do, help her out and stuff
Mm-hmm.
without any interruptions and things. Whereas even like in my last job, when I was working from home, like it was still a lot harder to kind of take those breaks because of the nature of the work and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's ironically kind of easier. It somehow became like kind of my main full-time job
No,
at this point.
no, I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah, just it's a trial and error. I think when audiences and like viewers see us make content, just to know like at the end of the day, we are still human beings, and we still have to. Once we turn it off, we still have to go back to our regular lives and just take care of our loved ones. And just like for me, like I have my daughter, and just like I work with students with disabilities at a private school,
Mm.
so and knowing that in a couple hours I gotta wake up and go there and just do all of this stuff, like it's not easy, you know. Which leads me to another thing I want to ask you, like how have you ever experienced like like content creating burnout or like streaming burnout, like where you just like have to take a break from just making content in general?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had this whole. I think this was before I started getting into YouTube. Like I was mainly doing it on Twitch, and I was seeing a little bit of growth, but I was then trying to like stream as many days as I could, and it just became, um, I think, particularly because I didn't really have like a direction as such. I was just like streaming whatever kind of things came to mind, and
Hmm.
trying to like. It's one of those things. If there's anyone who's kind of like new and trying to get into it, you definitely have to think of your own work-life balance and in that sort of stuff, and not just kind of go, well, I can afford to do this every single day right now, so I'm going to do this every single day and not really think of anything else, because it does very quickly get can get tiring, especially streaming. I find more than like making videos. You kind of record a script or record whatever, and
Hmm.
then you're sitting there editing, and a lot of that is um, quiet time, which I like. I can put music on and I can just do what I'm doing. Whereas when you're streaming, you have to be kind of on in the same way that you might if you're doing. It's not quite as bad as like doing a customer service job, because obviously you're working for yourself rather than someone who's demanding that you stay, polite and smiling even in the
Yeah.
face of like the worst, most ignorant people you can possibly deal with.
Gotta love
I
those
mean,
type of people.
yeah, working in customer service does not give you the most positive view of that whole area, but you're still kind of on. You still your social battery's still going, and like at the end of it all, especially if it's like a long, if you've gone for like 6 hours or whatever, at the end of it, you just kind of, I don't know, doing that whole sort of thing of like actively trying to make conversation with everyone, actively trying to keep moving, because you, if there's a lull, that just means you're basically uninterested for that time. You're just sort
Yeah.
of sitting there, yeah. So you've got
Like
to.
that, like dead air, like where you're just like
Mm,
you're more immersed into the game and just not really conversating. Like I totally agree. Like when it comes to like just being live, you're people are coming to see your personality, and like you said, it's like customer service. You gotta have your social skills and be able to talk it. Like, and yes, you can talk to the viewers and everything, but when it like sometimes when nobody's chatting, you got to come up with that conversation, technically with yourself, but like while entertaining others as well. So there's a fine balance between doing just being able to invested into the game, but also to deliver commentary towards the game and also to your viewers so they can stay engaged and know that, oh, he's not only like focusing on the game, but they're trying to conversate with us too. It's like
mm.
so again, and like you said, like if you're doing it for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, it could get tiring, and then sometimes you just like start forgetting that you're. I like there's times I forgot I was even live, and I was just playing games, and I was just focused on that. But it is a fine balance. So for people who do it for longer, kudos to them, because this is not as easy as people think it is.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between doing it like on stream. If you um I suppose the exception would be if you're just doing it, you're streaming purely because that's the only way you can like show your mates your gameplay. You're just doing it for fun. But if you're doing it for like trying to build a career, you can tell the difference between that and just sitting there and playing a game on the couch. And there's a lot less kind of pressure. You can just sit there and zone out and you know let
Yeah.
it all take you away.
No, I totally agree. Do you stream anything other than horror games, or are you just strictly like in this genre? I just was out of curiosity.
Um, at the moment, I mean, at the moment, it's literally just Last of Us because of obviously the challenge and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it's mostly been horror. Even when like it's been stuff like Alan Wake 2.
Oh, great game.
There was a game that came out a couple of years ago called The Chant, which is a really fun survival horror game, like which is based around kind of spirituality and like stuff in a really interesting way. If anyone ever gets a chance to play that,
Also, great game.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the last time I probably played a non-horror game on stream was probably a Sonic game, and that was like a few years back now.
No, I get that. I think it's also nice to like just. I've played so many horror games where I'm just like, I don't even know what other games are at this point. But sometimes it's just nice to play something a little different and just like, okay, like and just find that love for video games again. Because there's times where like when I go live or before I go live, I'll have that endless scrolling of my Steam account of just all these games that like I could play but don't feel like playing, and I could take hours just to find one game to play, even though I have over 300 games in general. So just being able to just be like, you know what, today I don't want to play horror. I'm gonna just play something different. Just makes everything fresh. But speaking about horror games, what is your favorite, like, and why? Like, and then I want to ask after that, like, well, what is your top five? Like, we're gonna get into this stuff.
Okay, we're getting
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking like favorites of recent years, because there's two different answers to this. So if we're talking favorites of recent years, then it would be a toss up between Signalis,
Such a good game.
and Tormented Souls, which are like, I think they're my two kind of like top horror games of recent years that come out again, because they've just captured that essence of like those old school like PS1, PS2 era survival horror games so perfectly, and then but they've also got their own identity and they tell their own story. It's not just like a Resident Evil clone or a Silent Hill clone; it's something else. And Signalis in particular is one, like, because the story as well is like something. It's not something that's presented to you on a plate. It's like all straightforward. It's something you have to kind of unpick and unwrap because there's loads of layers to it and stuff. But yeah, I absolutely like love all stuff like that. Again, it comes back to, you know, always being a big fan of horror stories, even when you know, reading books or watching movies and stuff. So when games get into that kind of like territory as well, it's always very cool. So that's like the kind of the answer if we're talking more recent ones. If we're talking all time, then it's going back to like Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, like the original for the 1999 game for the PS1. Because like Resident Evil 2 is probably a better game. Like that's probably like one of the ones like the best that they ever made. But 3 has like kind of those memories associated with her and that nostalgia, like particularly for me. And there's always something, especially even when you replay it, like that feeling when you can like start to hear Nemesis getting closer and you hear his like growl in the background, or you just hear him saying, stars, and then blasts out of nowhere. There's nothing quite like it.
It's iconic. It really is, honestly, in my opinion. But how do you feel about them remaking a lot of these Resident Evil games, and even Silent Hill? Like, I feel like a lot of companies are realizing that it's time to bring back the OGs. But you know, like, do you feel like they are like some of these games shouldn't be touched and should just be originals, or are you okay with some of the remakes? It's kind of a two-part question.
Yeah, I've enjoyed not all the remakes have kind of landed as remakes. Like, I don't think RE2 and 3 necessarily captured exactly the same magic as the originals in the same way. Like, there was a lot of content cut out of 3. 2 didn't really handle like the B scenarios that you got, because you got essentially 4 games out of like the original RE2, like the way it was told, and there was different facets to the story, whereas it felt a lot more kind of repetitive in the remake. But at the same time, I can kind of see them as like, you know, really well put together games that they're fun in their own right. If you kind of take them for what they are, sort of thing. So I don't have a problem with them existing and being there. I guess I wish if they're going to do that and bring them out, then I wish they'd also make the originals more accessible on modern consoles as well. So, like, say, because I get a lot of like modern gamers won't touch like fixed cameras, feels outdated for a lot of people. Tank controls feels outdated if you're not used to it, if you didn't grow up with it like I did.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly valid and fine. But I think being able to go, well, look, they're there, give them a go, see what you think. The fact that they're like pixel graphics or whatever, it's not fully photorealistic. You can't zoom in and compare who renders the best eyelashes or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
These games, play them for the games they are, and like experience the horror in them, experience the puzzles and the level design and the way they tell the story and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I think that they're doing them a disservice by keeping them locked on older consoles. Or, yeah, unless you like got a PC and know exactly where to get the PC versions, because they're not exactly like you just log into Steam and buy them either.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think, like obviously they're not gonna be able to put everything into like these remakes and just like they're like I think they did a disservice when it came to Resident Evil 3 remake. I just felt like they just just the content they just did less. They no clock tower. They just didn't provide everything they could have. It had so much potential, and even like obviously Resident Evil 2 remake, which honestly, in my opinion, is in my top five favorite horror games of all time. Just how they remade it, it just felt fresh. It honestly got me back into like obviously Resident Evil 7 for me got me back into the series. But when it came to Resident Evil 2 remake, it was one of the things that I feel like I could pick up at any point and just continue playing over and over and over again. Do I wish they made obviously some changes? Of course, but I could definitely see that game and just hopefully like new like Resident Evil 4 remake being more in tune for people in this generation to experience games that we experienced when we were younger. You know. I know when I first played Resident Evil 4, I played it on the Wii. So my experience was different from a lot of other people, and I promise you, like playing it on the Wii was probably the scariest experience I've ever had in a horror game, compared to playing it on a console. Just being able to like you gotta hope that your connectivity doesn't fall off, and then while you're facing a chainsaw, which has happened to me multiple times. I never actually beat it on a Wii because I got too scared because I was afraid that my Wii stick would die, or again like I can't connect to it and then my head would get chopped off. So, like I said, Resident Evil 4 remake gave me that nostalgicness of just like having that same fear, and like I think they're doing a great job. Like I said, Resident Evil 3 definitely fell a little short for me. But I feel like Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2 definitely gave the original vibes, but also made it fresh. So I hope that they continue with that trend, and again, like to attend to like new audience, but also attend to audiences that played the original and enjoy that. Sorry, that I kind of rambled off, but
yeah. No,
yeah.
I get what you mean. Like, I mean, with 4 as well, like that's probably kind of a slightly different case as well, because with 2 and 3 you've gone from like fixed camera tank controls to obviously the modern over the shoulder camera and stuff. And people can have whatever different opinions, whereas the original 4 was effectively trying to do that over the shoulder thing, like, but very early on you couldn't really move the camera very much, and I still get tripped up by that when I go back to it and kind of, oh no, I can't actually control this, I need to do it like all, it's effectively still tank controls, whereas so the update feels, I guess, more natural because it fits in with what they were trying to do originally anyway. And like I did really enjoy the original 4, like, and I remember particularly the twin chainsaw women, like in the
Oh
in the
yeah.
pit when you were actually, that was like one of them, like absolutely terrifying moment playing that on the PlayStation 2 for the first time. But I also had like, it came in a weird time, I guess, because like I was so used to the other ones, and then this like was a new way of playing games because they were like more gravitating towards that over the shoulder stuff, and I was getting older at that point and like a bit like kind of like, no, well, this isn't like the ones that I used to play, so I'm not as used to it. I can't gel with it as well. And then coming back to it now is like, no, I am used to the third person over the shoulder stuff, but this isn't the way. This is like the very early sort of clunky version of it. So yeah, the original was always caught in that sort of weird limbo there for me. Like,
I agree.
So, but like I have like 4 is probably the only remake other than 1, which is like absolutely perfect as a remake. Like, so 4 is the only other one that I'd say possibly surpasses the original.
Oh, okay. I respect that. Do you think Resident Evil One, the Resident Evil, do you think that because it has a remake that they should leave it, or do you think they should make another remake? Because there were some rumors that they might make another remake of the remake. I don't even know what to call that, but I guess remake squared. But do you think it's
yeah, it's a weird one. Again, like I wish I could just go to everyone and say, look, just play that remake. That's like basically, that and RE2 are basically, if you like survival horror, that's the genre. They're the perfection. That's exactly what everything else should try and emulate. But again, I also know like a lot of people, just the fact that it's fixed cameras, the fact that even though there's a modern control scheme in there's tank control as well, a lot of people just won't touch it because of that. And it's like,
which is
I
sad.
can see why they might want to do that for them, and I'd probably still play it. I'm not going to lie, I'd probably still go, well, let's see how it measures up, and let's add it to the collection kind of thing. But
yeah, you might do a little sigh, like, I guess I'll play it. Like, I'm sorry that you're twisting my arm here, but I guess I'll boot it up and stream it live on my platforms and see what people think. Like, I totally get it.
Go on then.
Yes, I'm having fun, but it's not the original remake. I totally get it. I kind of want to talk about the Horror Game Awards. Before I do that, I wanted to ask a real quick question. Are there any like lesser known horror games you think deserve more attention?
See, of the ones that I've played kind of in recent years, I mean, I think they're probably lesser known if, for anyone who's not familiar, like people who are familiar with indie horror probably know, or like if I reel off games like, again, the ones I mentioned before, Signalis and Tormented Souls, The Chant. If you're kind of familiar with indie horror, you probably know where these games are and where they come from. So I suppose this is more if people are only looking to AAA as kind of where they get the horror, and say like look beyond that, because there is plenty of great survival horror and horror games that have come out in recent years and are coming out. So just like back in 2021, Tormented Souls was like the main one that kind of stuck out to me then. That was one of the inspirations for the Horror Game Awards. That and Signalis not getting any traction, and like not getting any recognition because they were like fantastic. There's a game from 2020. There's a multiplayer game out which people might be familiar with called Scare Ritual, which is made by Wales Interactive. They made that's from a single player game called Made of Scare, which came out in 2020, which is kind of similar in a vein to Resident Evil 7 in that you're like first person going around,
going into the mansion.
And there's but it's got like a really interesting mechanic because the enemies navigate by sound, so you have to kind of hold your breath at certain points or move slowly, and so it's just like a really interesting, really compelling game, which they've apparently got funding to make a sequel for at some point, so hopefully we'll see more of that. But if people haven't played that game, it's definitely worth checking out if you're a horror fan.
Yeah, they made something like a Call of Duty Zombies version of it. I forgot the name of it, but they made something similar to where it's like waves of enemies, and you gotta like it's literally like I literally compare it to Call of Duty Zombies, but
Mm.
it's scare rituals version of it, which honestly is fantastic. But I hope, like I said, like how you said, like I hope they make us like another version of scare of made of scare, which honestly the art for it of the girl like holding her mouth, like fantastic art. But like, yeah, like that mechanic of just being able to like hold your breath, knowing that the enemies do go based off sound, should get more recognition, and just that's a cool mechanic that makes it different from all these other horror games. But I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, so you kind of brought it up a little bit, like just how like you said Signalis and Tormented Souls, which they're coming out with Tormented Souls too, and I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get Tormented Souls to be on the podcast, but work in progress. But like what, as you're a co-creator of the Horror Game Awards, like is there anything else that made you come up with this idea, or um, talking to your friend how to you guys created this, and how the process started, getting some of these people like games and doing like just basically, if you don't mind walking through the process of how it initially started and then how it's going now.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So it kind of, I always kind of say like it started essentially as like a brain fart who's just kind of like, well, yeah, we should make our own one because they're not recognizing these games because um it was like 2 years in a row. Like, I mean, obviously lots of great games came out in 2022, 2023, but
Mm-hmm.
um and sorry, 2021 as well. But like then like seeing kind of things, there's a whole thing anyway where things don't get recognition if they're not AAA, or it feels like indie is basically we'll give them one category and we'll kind of pat on the head like
Mm-hmm.
good indie game, but it has to be like an absolute darling of the industry kind of thing rather than recognizing lots of really solidly put together games, particularly if it's like horror or anything like that, because it's I don't know niche I suppose
Yeah.
for some people. Um, so it started off as that just sort of well we should do this ourselves, and then where it kind of grew initially was that we got together a few different content creators just based on kind of people we knew or had connections with mainly through like kind of Resident Evil and horror content creators and go like saying well do you want to be on like we'll make a jury and we'll award our own game of the year kind of thing. That was the start of it.
Okay.
um so that first year was the year Signalis came out. That was and that ended up being like the winner. But we like I think other games that were nominated included like Madison, um, game called Burnhouse Lane. There's a
Mm.
few others I can't remember off the top of my head. And then we kind of did this public vote based on Will, who's my co-creator, like his kind of platform on Twitter. So yeah, we put out a vote and like got like a top three out of it, and then got people to choose. So it was a bit rough around the edges, kind of like we were figuring it out as we go along. We had an idea of doing this all in December, but then with other people's commitments and stuff, it ended up like dragging on to like March or something before we
Mm-hmm.
finally got it all out. And then but we really liked doing it, like the process and everything. It was just a lot of fun to put together, and then we were just like, we can do this as a proper full award show. So that's what we set out to do last year. So we kind of did a big announcement saying we were doing it. We increased the people on the jury. We got a lot more people involved. We got people to present different awards, different categories, and like just kind of shooting our shot and reaching out to people and going, "Hey, do you want to do this for us?" And like, um, got some fairly big names in the horror space to do
Mm-hmm.
some stuff. We didn't get everyone we'd asked, but we got enough. And then we put on this whole nomination process and then a public vote process, which was like quite big, and we got like several thousand people taking part in that. And then we had these awards, and we were reaching out to developers saying like, you've been nominated for this or you've won this. And
I think that's
in a
cool.
lot of cases, we were getting like they were actually responding to us and like being excited for it, sharing our stuff. We got like when Alan Wake 2 won Game of the Year and other ones, we had Sam like gave like sent us acceptance speeches and stuff like that, which was just like when the idea first popped into our heads, there was like that was definitely on like the pipe dream kind of like area thing. Like it'd be really cool if like developers accept that, and now it's kind of happened and happening kind of constantly. So
Yeah, it's like
um,
your own version of like the Grammys or the Oscars, or I think that's really
yeah,
cool.
um, like we record like pre-recorded everything last time and
Hmm.
then broadcast it live like as which did lead to some teething problems, and also like things that you didn't pick up in editing until it was like live for everyone to see.
Hmm.
Um, like there was this one moment where like so I'm gonna break some of the magic behind the
Oh
screen, but
no,
like
I mean, yeah,
um,
I'm so
we
interested in finding this
yeah
out.
yeah so
Before you even tell that, if you don't mind,
yeah
I know you took applications for I actually applied to be one of the jurors of the Horror Game Awards. I thought it was cool, and like I said, I saw on X that you guys were looking for like you guys wanted to double in size. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put my name in that, like just to be able to potentially be a part of this, and to think that I got the co-creator of the Horror Game Awards here in my podcast. It's just crazy because like I didn't I've been reaching out to multiple people just to try to be on my podcast, just like game developers, movie producers, and just like content creators. But I just you never know who you can get and who you like unless you put yourself out there. So I just want to say thank you again for taking time out of your day to accepting my invite to my podcast and yeah, it's just a beautiful thing, like how everybody is so connected. How horror games or just horror in general can get so many people in different avenues together and just collaborate. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this. Now you can get into the process. I apologize. I just
yeah
wanted to put that out there.
no yeah, absolutely no problem at all. I mean that even that's still kind of surreal to me, to be honest. Like the fact that like people are like kind of like you saying like I'm glad that you could respond. It's like who am I? I'm just just some guy who just doing these things and like like you know I have no real clue what I'm doing. I'm kind of feeling it out as we go along. We'll like
Hmm.
there's um we make mistakes and kind of like try and grow, and like it's all very clunky. Like um so last year we kind of did it where because me and Will like we don't live in the same kind of area, so it was
Hmm.
hard for us to get together like physically. So we each recorded our parts like with a green screen and stuff, but basically pretended like we were listening to the other person's parts. So and then like cut it all together, and
Yeah.
like we'd cover all of that by like punching into one or the other like while they're talking and stuff. Except for the one part where I didn't realize till it was like being broadcast live that I'd punched into me while Will was talking. So I'm sat there with the camera full on my face, just like
Oh,
all on me as I'm just giving my best kind of I'm listening. um, so
the
this
trial and error.
yeah. So this year we're hoping to do it like kind of like broadcast live from like a recording studio type thing if we can do it. Obviously that sort of stuff takes money, so we're
Of course.
figuring out what we can and can't do and whether we can and can't, like where we can fundraise, how much we'll get for things and stuff like that. So that's again that's the difficulty I guess for doing it yourself with no like big insider industry connections and not being someone like Jeff Keighley, and like you can just I don't know pull funding out of his ass and do whatever. But we're determined that like that sort of thing isn't going to be a barrier. We're going to find ways around it, whatever way we can, because it shouldn't have to be like that. You've been in the industry for like decades and know everyone and have all these like mysterious sources of funding and connections. You should be able to pull together like passionate fans and friend connections and other content creators and stuff and do it things that way. And
Yeah.
that's hopefully what we're trying to do. And again, that's one of the things with just to mention with the jewelry selection stuff. Like that was kind of we got I think like nearly 100 applications or something
Oh
like
wow.
that. And then we got to like pick I think 30 out of that. So we're just like, right, how the hell do we do this? How do we do it so it's fair? Because
Just put their names in a hat. Just pull.
Yeah, well, it's different because we wanted, obviously. I'm not going to go too much into it because
Of
it's
course, of
still
course.
ongoing or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, no, no.
But then there's also like the thing of like, obviously we want people who are like, taking interest in horror and doing a lot of stuff for horror. We don't want to necessarily just be like ruling people out because they're not big enough or whatever else. Particularly because we're not particularly like big creators ourselves. Like
Yeah,
that's something I've got what nearly 3,000 subs on YouTube. I'm a long way from like 300,000 or
yeah,
a million or whatever else. I'm not exactly in a position to judge anyone else for being too small. But at the same time, there are going to be people who've like got like those huge audiences, and you can't really. It's like finding that balance is just, I suppose that's the big struggle, and then working that out and going right. Who do we pick? How do we pick this and stuff? So there's a whole lot of stuff which is kind of figuring it out as we go, but
yeah.
and then with people just having far more people than we can accommodate interested is like genuinely like something, a position I never really thought we'd be in, to be able to like do that. So it's still kind of surreal in that sense, and hopefully the people who are interested, even when we have to kind of go right, okay, these people made it in, you didn't, but
We appreciate
still,
it.
yeah.
I hope you know when I said that I applied, that wasn't my way of trying to like sweet the pot and everything. Like I wanted to be legit. I just wanted to say like I was genuinely interested in what you guys are
Yeah.
making and everything like that. So I just want to put it out there to the masses. Like this is not my way of trying to become a juror. I just thought like it's something that.
I'll just put this brown envelope out the way.
Yeah. Listen, you're only supposed to talk about that off stream. Come on. But no, I think what you guys created is, like I said, is a platform that is bringing more attention to a lot of these indie games, and like I love that the fact that you guys are doing like your own awards and you have a jury. What do you guys see what do you see yourself as a content creator and at the Horror Games Award in like a 5 year span? So like, what do you like? What are some of the goals that you want to accomplish in the Horror Game Awards as well as just yourself individually?
I mean, for myself, it's a bit more vague, in the sense that like my main kind of goals of it are just to be able to make the kind of content that I enjoy and I'm passionate about and I'm interested in making in a way, and like for it to be kind of sustainable and like to the point where I'm going, I'm making money from this. I can keep doing this. This is my job kind of thing. I feel comfortable with this. With the Horror Game Awards, it's like particularly as it's grown and like exceeded expectations. It's like right. This year, if we want to be able to do it live from a studio if we can make that happen. Ultimately, we want to get to a point where we can have like a live in-person event. That's if we can reach that point. How long that'll take, what that'll take, I don't know, but that's kind of have it where it's something like that's like a staple of horror gaming, and we have that that event happens every year. That's something that people look forward to. Again, it's hard to say how far away we are or not from that, because a lot of stuff is moving faster than we would have expected, going bigger than we would have expected, but also there are some, I suppose, milestones which require pretty big hurdles because it requires money and all sorts of other things and like many moving parts. And it's a lot easier to do the moving parts when it's essentially just recording stuff from your home and like with setups that you already have. Once you start bringing in like we need new stuff into it, that's where it kind of goes. Will that take longer than we thought? Don't know, but we'll see where it goes. But that's the ultimate goal with it, is to make it like an actual kind of established live award show that we can put on year after year and hopefully get bigger and better, and that people engage with while staying like, as long as it stays community led and like connected to like horror game fans rather than becoming something else and disconnected, then that's something I'll be happy with.
I think I think that's a good goal. I think if there's something about in-person things and just like having it live is just like a whole different avenue. And like I said, the way your trajectory and how you guys are going about it so far, I think you guys are on the right track. So I'm very interested to see like how you guys continue it like down the road and just like as it continues getting bigger and everything. I wanted to bring this up. It's kind of funny. Um, you guys have a podcast talking terror. You interviewed actually a friend of mine in a real I actually like go I've known him for 10 years. We actually live in the same state, and we've been friends for forever. Vincent, he's making Heartworm.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
it's so funny. So I saw that and I thought it was hilarious. And I brought him up. I'm like, you're willing to because like I've been trying to get him on my podcast for the longest time. And I was like, so you're and I saw it like when you guys did it. I was like, so you're willing to do a podcast for people you don't even know? And I'm like, I'm one of your closest friends, and you only want to jump on my thing. I thought that was hilarious. I great human being, but how basically what I wanted to ask is how how is that podcast going, and like how is that adding towards the content you guys are making?
It's going really well. It's definitely one of those things as well. Again, talking about like kind of learning as we go with a lot of this stuff. Um, it feels like a lot of the early ones. So this is nothing to do with the guest. This is entirely to do with us and kind of our own experience. Like
Hmm.
felt a bit more kind of stilted. Like you kind of like trying to work out what questions we want to ask, like how we want to do it and stuff. And then there was like long periods of like silence in between sometimes where you're kind of waiting like and getting into the rhythm and stuff. Whereas it feels a lot smoother now, kind of 2 seasons in than
Hmm.
it did. So um, that's definitely one of those things where it's a learning curve because that's not something I'd done too much of before, like presenting something and doing an interview and keeping it rolling. And so we were kind of learning as we go. And lucky enough, we're talking to people who are all like extremely, you know, down to earth. People who just wanted to essentially they've made something which they think is cool. They want to share it with people, and we can
Yeah.
talk about it. And there's a lot of shared interest as well because a lot of indie and even like above indie, like bigger like horror game developers, they're generally just horror fans who want to talk about stuff and back and forth. Like one of the next one that's coming up is with Kyle Rowley from Remedy, who about Alan Wake 2,
Oh,
and
nice, nice.
that was just a very kind of casual conversation. It felt like we probably could have gone on for hours and hours afterwards if we
It makes it
so
easier when they care about what they make, and it just happens to be horror games and that they love making and that we love to play. So it just works out. you know.
yeah,
Um,
that's it. If you can keep it conversational in that way, it feels a lot more natural. And yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable doing it. Like the first ones, we were kind of like, a bit kind of, ooh, let's make sure we do this a little bit, the nerves and stuff like that. Whereas
yeah.
it definitely feels more into a rhythm now than it did.
Yeah, which I mean, yeah, with just repetition. Like even my first one, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like this is a whole thing. When I like I said, when I created Whispers, I wanted it to be like a live podcast. But in the future, I guess one of my goals is to make it a call-in show as well. Like so, I'll have guests on this as well. But like as it continues growing bigger, I'll be able to have like just viewers be able to call in to ask like a guest like you or somebody who makes video games like their questions just to give another element for people to have that relatability or like just that connectiveness with that person which they might not get. A lot of people don't like when they play a video game they don't know really they only see the name of the people that create it. They don't know who's actually behind that name, and I feel like with your platforms or like even my platforms, this is a way for them to actually see the person who is making these games, who are putting that blood, sweat, and tears into their product. So I think what you're creating is amazing. I hope what I'm creating is another way of people being able to connect in that way, and it's just a beautiful thing. Like I said, horror is just a genre that just somehow brings everybody connected together, and it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot of the horror community like feels very wholesome as well, like which you wouldn't necessarily expect given the
I know,
subject
which all
matter
the
and
scary stuff.
but,
Yeah, they're the
but yeah,
nicest people.
just everyone's just like kind of really interested. Obviously, like everywhere, you get people that, like outliers and stuff. But I think
Of course.
out of all the kind of gaming community stuff, I'd definitely say the horror guys are the best. It's just so much easier to kind of find like I don't know connections with people and like just that sense of like genuine community because everyone's just like that. I suppose I suppose if all the like horror and nastiness is there on the screen or whatever, then like everything that's left out here is just like be a bit cozy and wholesome and just
Yeah. It's, I was just about to bring that up. It's funny how it works. I feel like the horror just does, like, takes all the nasty stuff out of it, and it's just like, I guess, like, I guess it's a nice balance. Like, you're playing horror, you're watching all this gore, scary jump scares, and then it's just like, all right, well, I guess to make this better, be the yin to the yang. I hope everybody's day is going good. How's your dog? Like, it's weird how it works because in my community it's the same thing. People are like, "Avery, how was your day?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's going good." And I'm screaming, and 5 seconds later I'm screaming, like. Which I love this community. It's just different than everybody else's. I think everybody just understands like why we're here. Like for me, I refuse to go live playing horror games. Oh no, I refuse to play horror games unless I go live because I'm too scared to play it by myself. So when people come to watch me play, it makes me feel better. Like I have people behind me, and I'm not terrified of doing it. So like everybody's so supportive and just like, hey, you got this, Avery. Like you don't worry. Like don't give up the game again. Like it's it's just like I said, it's just different. We are actually running out of time. I wanted to ask, like, is there any advice you would give to anybody who's inspiring to be a content creator, not just in the horror game space, just overall, or who wants to create something like that, like in this space?
Yeah. So, I mean, probably one of the first lessons that I learned uh, early on was that um, there's nothing wrong with getting it wrong or not knowing exactly what you want to do early on. Like a lot of kind of that starting out and thinking like I want to make content and I want to entertain people, whether it's talking about games, whether it's talking about horror games or it's something else entirely. Um, you will be kind of experimenting, like figuring it out, and then there'll be things that don't go wrong. There'll be whether it's you look back at your old streams or you look back at your old videos and kind of like cringe inside yourself. And but that's part of the process. And like I think, if you try and think that you have to do everything perfect first time, you'll never get started. Basically, whereas if you kind of make mistakes, even if you start and you're doing one thing and then you kind of it takes you a while to find that kind of comfort zone. Like for me, it took me a while to realize that actually I wasn't getting much attention like on YouTube if I was just posting up like VODs of streams, whereas once I started making like scripted content talking about like the lore of games and stuff like that, or talking about something in more depth that I put together more bespoke, that got a lot of interest and attention, and that was what worked for me. With other people, it might be different things, but yeah, you won't necessarily find that straight away. You will make mistakes, things will kind of go wrong, and there'll be things plenty you look back at and go, "Oh God, did I really do that?" Or even just listening to the sound quality of your old stuff, like some of my older videos, like the volume on them, like my voice is just really loud because I had this old busted mic, and the sound quality is terrible. But it's like, yeah, that's all part of the process. It's like, don't be afraid to kind of learn by getting it wrong.
Okay. I think that's awesome. Is there anything else you would like to tell our audience that are meeting for the first time, or some of your audience? Like, is there anything you want to reveal or anything in that aspect? And then after that, if you don't mind, like plugging yourself and giving like where people can find you about the Horror Game Awards, like, and basically let the masses know about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got no great big reveals or anything like
No
there,
worries.
unfortunately. But yeah, if you're interested in my stuff, I generally go by AKblackandred pretty much everywhere. So YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, TikTok. And when I stream to Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok all at the same time. So whichever one people prefer to watch streams on. If you're interested in someone driving themselves bananas whilst trying to beat a game without dying, then by all means come along. We got a pretty cool, wholesome community there. And then if you're interested in the Horror Game Awards, the horrorgameawards.com is like the website, and then Horror Game Awards on YouTube, at Horror Game Award on Twitter, and got lots of cool stuff coming up. In terms of, we have monthly showcases showing up like the latest horror games that are coming out. We do podcasts where we talk to the developers of games. Like, say, the next one due out is going to be talking to the director of Alan Wake 2. And then later on in the year, once we've picked and got our jury working, we'll be deciding which are the best games of the year. So hopefully that'll be a show that people won't want to miss. Yeah. So check it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to put out that in the description of the YouTube and just the other platforms has all Phil's links, has his Twitter, has the Horror Games Twitter, and also his YouTube. Make sure you go follow him on all platforms and support him when he what time do you usually stream? I don't know if I asked that.
So it'll be in, where are we now? I'll be live in 4 hours time from now.
Well, in 4 hours, if you guys want to go check his content out, definitely do. I just want to say thank you so much, Phil, for being a guest on Whispers of Horror. I think this was a fantastic conversation. I would love to have you again be a returning guest in the future. I just want to thank everybody for listening. Follow me on all platforms. Again, my name is Avi, but I go by Soavecito, and I'm a horror content creator, and this is what I love to do. Like I said, follow me on all platforms, and the next episode will be today's Wednesday. Oh my God, being up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not easy, but the next episode will be on Friday, and we'll have a guest, and I look forward to it. And yeah, this is episode 14 of Whispers of Horror, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.